Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Tech in Asia workshop on how to launch an NFT collection. We have had a ton of interest in today's session, so it sounds like there are a lot of folks out there who are interested in launching their own NFT collection. We are excited to host Chanel Lee, who will be taking us through this process and sharing a lot of her lessons learned. Chanel is the founder of Tasty Toasties, a limited edition generative NFT collection and the first digital product line from Toasty. Before she entered the NFT and Web3 world, Chanel worked in various global brand building and business development roles across tech and lifestyle companies. Chanel has had some really interesting lessons learned, including a launch and relaunch under her belt. So really excited to learn from her. Hey, Chanel, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so I know you have a ton of information to share, so I'm going to hop off screen and let you share your slides. To everybody at home, we do have 10 to 15 minutes reserved at the end for questions. So drop them into the chat and our team will be passing them through and we'll get through as many of those as we can at the end. All right. Thanks,
Thanks.
Chanel. Take it away.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. So welcome everybody. Give me 1 second. Yeah, and Maria covered, a little bit of my background and who I am. This is me. I'm the founder of the Tasty Toasties NFT project, and it was always meant to be the first digital product line from a larger brand that I would like to call Toasty. And in the meantime, ever since this whole journey started, I'm also advising another metaverse related project called Metapoly, the world's first decentralized metaverse property tycoon. Some interesting stuff coming up for that this weekend. And prior to all of this, I was in a good mix of different jobs, and I think one of the highlights of my previous past life was as marketing director of a global fitness and apparel line, sports apparel and footwear line that was licensed by this billion-dollar US brand company that gave the company that I was working for a license, and I was based out of Singapore doing this for worldwide distribution. So a little bit about Tasty Toasties. This is what my NFT project is about. 7,600 derivatives of Toasties that are derived from 5 original characters. And yeah, eventually, while we are born on the NFT space, eventually the goal is that I want it to exist in all sorts of different storytelling mediums, on physical retail, animated series, and different metaverse spaces. Yeah, so that's a little bit about where I am and who I am, right? So I believe many of you tuning in here today came in because the title is How to Launch an NFT Collection. And I receive this question almost daily, especially when we had just sold out. And I cannot possibly respond to all of these questions individually. So really happy today to kind of group this group some of the most commonly asked questions I've received and talk about them at one go today. So the first question that I actually like to ask back is, why NFTs, and must it be an NFT? Because I think, we are all so accustomed to seeing the headlines that if you just draw something, put it online, thousands of people will buy and you're an overnight millionaire. That's not really the case, especially if you're nobody like me who just burst onto the scene. It's actually quite difficult to get, to a certain level of people knowing about your project, or, if you're an artist, about your art. It's the same as it is in every market before NFTs came around. Like, how do you get recognition out there? I think a lot of the things that I've been doing is from my previous marketing job, in that I'm still using a lot of the same business and marketing principles. It just so happens that I'm working with NFTs, so there is a bit more spotlight on this particular industry right now. So the first thing that I really want you to question is, why are you doing an NFT project? Because if it doesn't necessarily have to be an NFT project, and if you can't answer the value proposition for yourself, it's going to be hard to communicate that to a really saturated market right now. So, but if you can go ahead with that, if you've answered your value proposition, couple of different categories you can look at. Number one, if you're an artist, of course, art is the category that you might want to do. If you are interested in branding, merchandise, retail, maybe collectibles is the way to go. That's kind of what I wanted to play in. And then, of course, if you're a gamer, if you're a gaming background, game assets is one of them. If you are very good at bringing people together, or creating social clubs. Membership passes might be one of those things. And then of course, if you're in a retail land space, maybe you really understand property, metaverse lands could be one option. And finally, sometimes you don't have to take yourself too seriously. You can just do a memes and vibes project, especially if you're already somewhat known in the NFT space. I have seen projects that are just dropped for laughs and they just sell out, depending on who you are. So there are many different ways you can go about it. And in my opinion, I wanted to share that NFTs are not really investment assets and they should not be marketed that way, in my opinion, because of all the different categories that they can be in. And the market is just so nascent right now. If you sell that something is an investment asset, it actually puts a lot of pressure on you to deliver your very new project that it's potentially evolving day in, day out. So at the end of what its core is, I think NFTs are digital goods, and try and keep it in that bucket. If not, you might run into problems. And also, depending on the kind of people you're selling to, if it's a global audience, every single country has different ways that they view NFTs. So if you call your NFT an investment asset, it can be a little bit risky depending on what your ultimate goal and objective is. So some of the latest statistics that I found from Masari on 9th of February, the biggest category for NFTs right now are still avatar NFTs, but we definitely see avatar meaning profile pictures, but we definitely see a lot of interest in the gaming space because every single asset in a game can be a potentially an NFT. So again, once you figured out what is it you wanted to do, then I think there's enough room to play in all of the different categories. In fact, I would say that you'll probably see a shift this year moving away from avatar, but moving back into games or metaverse categories. That being said, those types of projects will be much bigger, and I guess it depends on the level of funding or the team size that you have to go into those categories. Yeah. So once you've got it sorted, some key components for what you should look up, what you need to do. Very simple things, something like a roadmap. Same thing as a business plan. In fact, I would think it's even more scaled down than an actual business plan that you need to do for I guess like a startup pitch. It can be, depending on what you're doing, it can be as simple as like a 1-page PDF, or it can be like a 60-page file. So again, depending on who your target audience is, and something that summary like that we did recently for ours, for for like a 3-month time frame, we have this. Something a bit longer, we have like a white paper online. So I think this is what we commonly see in the industry, something simple and summarized for people who just want to quickly understand it at a snapshot. And then for those who prefer long form, they tend to read, a fuller document that you can publish online. And when you have all of that sorted, the other thing to consider is what blockchain do you want to be on, because this is going to affect the longevity of your project. For myself, I went with Ethereum, even though Ethereum is more expensive. Reason being that I think that's where the heritage of NFTs really exploded. And when I came about doing my project, I really wanted, in the next 5 to 10 years, as NFTs evolve, I wanted to be one of those brands that were on the OG chain where NFTs exploded. So I feel like Ethereum has that certain branding, and being from a marketing background, brand is super important to me. So the reason that I also launched my project and my brand on this particular era in time was important to me, and therefore I chose Ethereum. That being said, I know that there are many other NFT projects today coming out on different chains like Solana, Flow, Polygon, Arbitrum, Chronos, plenty of them, and there are pros and cons to each one of them, right? Because some of the other chains, they might be cheaper to work with for a first time round. You might not be spending extra on gas, and if you make mistakes, it's going to be cheaper. Like for example, we made a couple of accidental mistakes and we burned Ethereum that we didn't want to burn by accident. So there are pros and cons to each of that. That being said, I think if you're on Ethereum, the competition is also a lot stiffer. If you are on a newer chain, maybe if there are lesser projects, it might be easier to stand out. But then the target audience pool might also be smaller because there are not that many people flipping on the other chains yet. So yeah, this is a important discussion to really think of. And I think it will affect your strategy a lot, which is why I put in this slide, even though it's really technical and it's not about marketing, but it really affects who your consumer pool is. So take the time to understand your goals and your objectives before you decide on a chain. because that's really going to influence how your project is going to be perceived. So yeah. And when you want to mint a project, so I receive this question very frequently also, how to mint an NFT collection. And I realized that many people don't realize that there are different kinds of contracts out there. One, you either use marketplace's smart contract. So I liken this to, if you want to start e-commerce store, you just go to a marketplace like Amazon, eBay, Lazada, Shopee, and you use their store in store. So there's already a bit of a template for you to use and try with, right? So you can do that if you're a smaller project, and it's definitely cheaper if you're just starting out. But the problem is, if you want to do customizations, custom functions, or you are nitpicky about the ownership of the contract and the provenance of it, then there are of course limitations to doing that on the marketplace. But if you're just trying, you're just starting out, I definitely recommend at least playing around with the marketplaces first. So Mintable is actually so it's actually based in Singapore, if I'm not wrong. So, and they've been really supportive of Tasty Toasty. So shout out to them. And their team is here. So if you are watching live from Southeast Asia, it might be easier to try that out. And then of course, OpenSea is where everyone goes and you'll find everything. And then there are many others that are never included here as well that cover different kinds of chains. But for, if you are thinking about the scale of your project the same way that I was thinking about my project, then what you want to look at is your own smart contract, because this gives you your own ownership of your asset, which is the smart contract, and the provenance of which the brand was built on. And also, it does have better branding perception for people in the space, because then they know, you owned it. And in the NFT space, a huge thing that we desire is self-governance. So having your own smart contract is definitely going to elevate the perception of how big your project can potentially be. Yeah. And then of course, you can't do this alone. Rome's not built in a day. I am doing a lot of these couple things doubled up, which is not really sustainable. But I would think that, in a good sized project, a good amount of people to have in your team so you don't go crazy would be to have one artist, one project manager, your smart contract developer. Sometimes there are full stack developers that can also double up as your front end developer, your community manager, your Discord admin, Discord moderators, and then if you have extra capacity for it, maybe like a specific partnerships manager, because then that will help you rapidly find a lot of collaborations and partnerships altogether. But in my case, we're kind of managing to scrape together a couple of double up some of these roles. But yeah, this is at least the number of people that you would want on your team to make sure that everybody has their sanity in check and you can handle the number of people in your community. Again, it also depends on the size of your project. If you're doing a 10,000 NFT project versus a 500 NFT project, maybe you wouldn't need that many people. So yeah. And by the way, I think everyone I have listed here on this slide is of equal importance, because you really require a lot of different people looking at different things. And the number one thing I would think about NFT projects that makes it really fly is community. So the person who's your community manager is super, super, super important. Yeah. And finally, when we're talking about the size, so again, brought up the size of the collection, right? So think about the supply and pricing. So number one, how big of a community can you or your team manage? I think this is going to be super important, because when I started, I started in August last year. So I saw the trend was like 10K NFT collections, and I never really thought about how difficult or how many people it would take to run a community of, let's say, 2,000 to 3,000 over people, or up to 5,000 over people, depending on how many NFTs each of these people hold, right? And if I could do it all over again, I might have actually started with a smaller collection. So our collection size is 7,600, and we have about 2,000 over individual holders. And we only very recently brought on a community manager, which is not exactly the right thing to do. So don't be like me. I think plan proportionally to your resources. That's something that I wish I knew earlier on. I think it's better to have like a smaller community and something that you can manage and grow stickiness within that pool of people before you scale up. So that's super that's just something for you, to really reflect on and really consider. And when it comes to pricing, don't be too fixated on a fixed number as well, because one of the mistakes that I made, so if some of you have read some of my previous stories, I'm not sure, but basically what happened was for Tasty Toasties, we actually launched twice. We launched once in November 2021, and we launched the second time round in end January, first week of February this year. The first time we launched, it was bad. Like, it was just so bad. And partially, one of the reasons was, market conditions were not very good. But on top of that, I didn't adjust the pricing to match the market conditions. So make sure that you are flexible in that pricing. But if you have a certain roadmap or business plan in mind, then your flexibility in your pricing is also going to affect your projections or what you can do in your roadmap. So I think one of the things basically to take away is be flexible to change. This space is moving really fast. Don't be overly fixated on a plan that you already had in your head. And then just keep like stubbornly going with that, because that was one of the reasons why I think we initially fell flat. And we actually had people in our community tell us, you're charging too much, the timing's not good. But at that point, I was just really stubborn and I wanted to pull the trigger because I've been working on it for a while and I just wanted to see what happens. So clearly the market told me you're not ready. So avoid those mistakes that I made, and yeah, just make sure that you're listening to your community, and be flexible and willing to adjust. So now the component that everybody always wants to know about: how do you get hype, right? How do you get your name out there? I honestly, there's no magic shortcut that I can promise from me, sorry. And sometimes it still boggles me that we've gotten the amount of attention that we have today. But really what worked for me was, number one, doing as many ask me anything as possible. I do it all the time on Twitter Spaces, on my own Discord, in other people's Discord. I take on any interview request that comes my way, especially before we launch. Now I feel like some of the interviews are repetitive, so then I might decline some. But as much as possible, whoever is asking, whoever wants to know, I always make a point to accept and tell my story and share what is it that I'm trying to do. And through these sessions, I also make it a point to kind of talk about NFTs in general and not just my project and myself, because I think but the large percentage of the world may know what NFTs are but don't necessarily own one themselves. There's still a lot of skepticism out there, so I try to take the opportunity to educate the market through these platforms as well. The second thing that works for me, it's going to be less important this year, I feel, but last year when I first started out, there were actually many NFT projects where the founders were anonymous. And I was like, okay, I'm a nobody and I have no budget, so I have no choice. I have to come out and say who I am. And because of that, I think, being non-anonymous, and the whole time I've just been as transparent as I can possibly be about who I am, what I'm doing, my failures, my learnings, and just not beating around the bush. I think that really, really helped. People just kind of, understand that I am trying to do something in this space and I'm not just going to like take your money and run with it. So I think that really helps. And then of course, like, even if you have those intentions, people may not necessarily believe you. So it's just up to you to keep proving it through your action. Yeah. And also communication. So same thing to the next point, which is, being accountable and communicating. One of the downsides of the space is that I think you are expected to keep communicating, which can be a little bit exhausting. It's something that I'm facing now. I'm a bit fatigued from always explaining myself. But the market does actually demand that. They demand like frankness and honesty. So if you can, and if that's something that you are willing to do and put yourself out there for, then I think, that will be a big plus for you. And finally, also, again, repeating the point, make sure you catch the right market timing, because I think the NFT market, unfortunately, is still being propped up by a lot of speculative trading. So no matter what, depending on the size of collection that you're going to do, you will have to appeal to some of the traders. And if the market is down, they might be trading meme coins or they might be trading cryptocurrency instead. So if you're going to launch in a bad market, you are just betting against yourself. So don't do that. And finally, I think what really, really changed things between my first launch and the second launch was also just timing and time spent in the space. It wasn't that I wasn't already spending time in NFT communities, but I think there was an additional 3 months between November and January for me to just like think about what I was doing, go to NFT events, like I went to DecentraCon Miami, for example, and I got to meet a lot of other people in the US, in New York, and and Decentricon Miami, and I went to events that were done by NFTs that I own as well, or my friends own, and then they let me into the event. So through these processes, I actually met a lot of other NFT communities, and I take part in the joy of being in the space. I mint projects, I flip projects sometimes, and then I also just keep talking about my story to everyone I meet and everyone who's willing to listen. So I think being a part of the space yourself as a founder, this is not something that you can pay for. This is just something that takes time for you to do. And if you are as serious about it as I guess I am, as crazy about this as I am, then doing this is going to be your hobby and your downtime anyway. So always 24/7, I am on Twitter reading the news. I am on Masari, reading up on reports. So and also on hopping through Discord here and there. So yeah, just 24/7 consuming what's the latest in the space. I think that's going to keep you up to date with the trends and how fast you can change your project to meet the needs of the market, as well as give you that magic X factor that other projects might not have if they are big brands coming to the space, but they haven't actually taken the time to understand this new culture of people. So yeah, I think that's it from me. So I'm gonna go on to the Q&A. Yes,
Okay.
I see them. Yeah, hi Maria.
Yeah. Okay. Let me help you through the Q&A because I think we have a bunch of questions coming in. We're going to group them up, I think, into the different areas that you talked about. So let's talk first about choosing a chain because obviously, you started there and it's obviously quite important. So when you're choosing a chain, then obviously you also kind of are working on the marketplace as well. So how do you know which chain has that specific target audience, and that particular reputation and that demographic that you're starting to target? How do you know which chain has who?
Right. I think that's a great question. So I actually can't speak for the other chains because I'm an Ethereum maxi, I think. So to call myself, I'm not sure if I can call myself that, but and I started on Ethereum NFT. So I haven't actually jumped to other chains. I know other projects, friends, they started on other chains, asked me to mint. I don't even own one Solana today, so I haven't actually bought. So I understand that barrier to entry. And I would say the best way to know is actually minting some other projects in that chain. I mean, take it as a cost to learn the market, whether or not the project tanks or goes well. But that's just really how you start. I think, maybe find an NFT aggregator site, filter it by chain, see what looks hot. Mint one, join the community, talk to people, ask them directly, oh, how do you find out your news? All the information is so transparent. It's all two ways. There's Discord. There's so many different Discords. Of course, then you don't know who to trust, don't know who not to trust. So maybe just do a trial and error, buy 3 different NFTs from 3 different communities, talk to different people, and then make your own assessment from there. So yeah.
Okay. On the issue of trust, there are new marketplaces popping up. How do you know who to trust with the NFTs? Which marketplaces can you trust?
Right. So I think I'm not sure what this question is referring to. Do you mean the marketplace marketing or the marketplace tech? In general, I think, if you see some of the biggest NFT brands, if they are on the marketplace and it's their official store, most likely they have probably already vetted it. So you can go with it. It's like if you see Disney in a department store, you would feel like, okay, the department store knows what's up. So I think I would just look for the signals. If the top 10 NFT collections are on that marketplace officially, that should be safe. If not, you can always find a tech person to audit the code and the backend to double check. But yeah, I don't think you would do that unless you want to take a huge risk. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned the number of NFTs in the collection mattering a lot. How many do you have a minimum number of NFTs in order to release in a particular collection in order to know that it would be reasonably successful and get enough supply and volume out there?
Right. I don't think there's a one fixed number because it depends on the pricing. It also depends on the type of NFT, I would think. Because let's say you are a gaming company and every single weapon is an NFT, you're gonna have I don't know, hundreds of thousands of NFTs by the end of it. So it's difficult to say. And I wouldn't think that selling out is actually the one and only measurement of success. There are plenty of projects that took a while to sell out, and are very, very successful today. I'm not talking about mine. I'm talking about like other projects I'm involved in as well, like Asian, for example. Maybe it took about a month. AlphaGo Club took a while. So the supply actually makes things more difficult. If you have a bigger supply, it's actually more difficult to ensure that it would sell out. So I think it depends on what you intend to do with the funds that you get from the NFT sale. If you are, committing, like in our case, I can't speak for other projects, I'm not very sure, but in our case, we put 56% of the initial revenue into the community wallet and pledged that for certain items that we were going to do and execute on. So, we had worked out that if we had this rough budget, we could deliver on this. So again, it really depends on each individual collection. What is the goal of the collection? Some collections, you are buying an NFT to represent your governance in a DAO that goes on to buy other NFT projects. So they might need to raise more because they're basically like an NFT DAO. I don't like use the word investment, but they go and purchase other NFTs. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if you had to go back and reset the number of NFTs in your collection, where do you think you would be? Like what range?
Sorry, reset the what?
If you had to go back in time and pick the number of NFTs that you want in your collection, what range do you think you'd be aiming for this time? Knowing what you know now, of course.
Yes. Depending on the market condition, I think I would cap it at 3,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at 3,000,
half of what I have now.
At 3,000, do you think that we know that you would sell that one out. Would you still have a community manager to manage a 3,000 collection? Like what gets easier? Yeah.
Right. It's a great question. I think it will depend on the veracity of the secondary market after that. So one of the problems that we have now as Stacy Toasties is that after we sold out, we didn't continue having really good secondary market volume and traction. I think I have some reasons as to why I think that's the case, but I haven't fully figured it out either. I'm also like learning on this journey. I think if it was a 3,000 collection, but it kept being flipped on the market, then we would be raking in a decent amount of revenue from the secondary trading royalties. And that would mean that the community would be really demanding on the metric that most NFT communities are using to measure success, which is floor price. And then I would definitely, be having community manager or managers to manage those expectations, because people can be extremely demanding when they mint an NFT and it's suddenly using the word moons, right? And then as with all trading cycles, at some point there might be a dip. And when it dips, people are going to freak out. So you really need those community managers to manage those sentiments. Yeah. So it really depends on the condition. I wouldn't say it's the supply that affects my decision making there. It depends on the state of the community and where we're at. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So a lot of people think a lot about the primaries, but you're now moved on to the next step, which is also like worrying constantly about the secondaries and making sure that the hype continues. Any best practices that you've found in terms of continuing the hype beyond the initial launch?
Yes. So I think one of the things that I'm seeing other projects do, not just myself, is, just being accountable with your roadmap and just sharing with your community, the changes that you're making along the way, or maybe something you plan to do is changing. I think just communicating that and just continued marketing about who you are. Like, that's why we're doing this today, for example. And just bringing more people into the space, because I don't necessarily see that slope in trading activity necessarily as a bad thing, because this actually means that we get to recruit more people into the community, because when people first mint out a project, they tend to buy multiples, and then after a while they might decide to let go of one and keep one. But when they let go of one, depending on where you're at in your project's journey, sometimes the entry price can be even better than the mint price. So we get to bring new people in. So I think just keep doing it as if it's day one all over again. And the hype, you can't necessarily plan for hype. I think it's also just putting yourself in enough positions to have the right people find you and want to support you. I think that was one of the things that I think happened to me eventually was that I was just in enough places and spoke to enough people that I found the right group of supporters. And yeah, and the space is so new, so I think there's just going to be like more and more people coming in. So I'm not worried about the supply of eventual supporters. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Mm.
So when it comes to building community, then like when you opened up your Discord, it sounded like basically you could see, how do I say it, see new members in your Discord channel. Like basically every time you started, you went out and did a talk, right? And so at some
Yeah.
point you just like organically grew your Discord channel. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I've tried every single tactic out there, trust me. I think I would just skip ahead to the one that I felt really worked, which was doing collaborations with other Discords, because it's the same thing. Like you open an e-commerce store, unless you do some Facebook ads or IG ads, no one's going to see it, right? So, doing collaborations with other Discord and choosing the kinds of communities and Discords that you want to collaborate with is going to matter. If you go to a very scary flipping alpha community and you are a friendly happy project like mine, you're gonna bring in the kind of people who demand like instant moon, and it's gonna bring in that kind of culture to your Discord as well. So make sure you spend some time like figuring out the vibe of the people that you want to talk to and collaborate with, and see what you can do together. I think a common tactic that a lot of people use is doing like joint giveaways or joint pre-sale spots. But beyond that, um, yeah, I think Twitter giveaways also work. And yeah, I think that's just at an NFT level. That would be how to eventually grow the Discord. I think Discord growth also typically happens usually when it's right before the minting phase. So after that, I think things would slow down because it just becomes a home for the existing community members, which is fine. I'm not too fussed about Discord numbers. So one of the things I did in between the two launches was I actually purged my Discord and rebuilt it all over again. I only kept in the original holders because the people who were there, I think the original Discord numbers were like 4,000 over. They were not engaged. Um, and after the first launch fell flat, like I think I don't know why people are still around. I think maybe some of them were bots. I got botted. So just purged everything and then just rebuilt from scratch. And the new ones that came in right before the second time we did our sale, they were much more in tune with what we wanted to do. Yeah.
Okay, nice. We have some technical questions, but I think that might be interesting. So how did you manage the initial minting fees? Was that just like your own Ethereum stash or what?
How did I manage the initial minting fees? I'm not sure if this means like the cost it was for me to deploy this,
I think that one.
um,
Yes.
right, or like on the customer side. Okay.
For you.
Yeah, I think I started this as, yeah, it's pretty much self-funded.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. So you
Mm.
just like bought up ETH use and you use your own money to start deploying.
Yeah, essentially.
Okay, cool.
And yeah.
Are there any ways around that? I guess have you heard of any other ways to do this?
Yeah, plenty. I mean, a lot of the bigger NFT projects, they form a team and then they raise like VC money to deploy NFT collection. So it's definitely possible. But then of course it depends on what you're trying to do. So if you're doing a game NFT, for example, you could, raise money with like gaming related VCs. That's completely up to the person's objective. Yeah. I'm gonna answer the other side of the question because maybe they mean like the initial purchase fees. We actually used so a lot of the NFT smart contracts are open source, and this also became something better for us the second time around we launched. We used ERC 721A, sorry for the tag, but it's basically a new way of writing the minting process so that it cheapens the initial mint because it bundles it up, long story short. And it's actually open source, and we referenced it from the Azuki NFT project. So that really helped incentivize people to mint in batches as well because the batch cost went down. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Mm.
Good tip. Um, Also, how much copyright did you set? 10% capped on OpenSea question mark.
I think this person means royalties and not
Yeah.
copyright. So our royalty is 6% right now, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can check when you just like go in and see if you like click buy, you don't have to click purchase, but at the end it will say, I think most projects tend to set between 5 to 10%. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Some other questions on teams specifically. So how did you find your
Yeah.
I mean, this is a little bit more technical, of course, but
Right.
how did you find your developers? How did you know that they were good ones? You could trust them, all that.
Yeah. So this is where I would say I got a bit lucky. My developer is my brother. So yeah. Um but he also just kind of did this as a hobby to learn how to do Solidity developing. This was his first Solidity project, and both times around that we launched, there were like no issues with the contract. So I think he did a pretty good job.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then can you, on your list of like essential team members, you also have smart contract developer and then front end developer. Can you maybe explain the
Yeah.
difference between the two?
Right. So yeah, my brother covered both, but we know that not everyone in the market does that. The front end developer is basically the person who would be doing your website. And it's not just like the website design, because you would need MetaMask or wallet integration to the smart contract so that people can mint directly from your contract. So that's the front end. And the back end is really referring to the Solidity smart contract. For Ethereum is Solidity. For other chains, I'm not sure what the coding language is. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Mm.
That's super helpful. All right. When you are personally going out to look for other NFT projects, how do you evaluate whether or not it's a good project that you want to invest in?
Right. So personally, I look at a few different factors. Number one, the strength of the team, who they are, especially if it's newer, that no other metrics have been set up. Yeah, I would just kind of trying to like evaluate who the people are behind the project. Um, and then look at also the kind of community that they're building. If it's a community of traders and flippers, that's fine, but I wouldn't stay in that community. I would like maybe flip their NFTs and get out before everything crashes, because I don't want to be left holding the bag. If it's a community like some of the ones that I shown on my previous slide, like the Little Lemons, or Cyberkongs, regardless of whether the market is bullish or bearish, the people are super welcoming, and they're there for a good time, and I would stay in these communities, and I would also see like how active they are on social media. So NFT social media is really Twitter and Discord. It's not so much the other platforms yet. All of the Instagram DMs that you get, they're all probably spam. So I think I would avoid any NFTs that are on Instagram, like DMs. It's probably like they paid some agency to spam like 500,000 DMs. So I don't know who's buying those NFTs. If you are doing that, you're probably getting scammed. So go on Twitter, go on Discord, and I think also just talk to the people. Discord is an open channel. You can just find people in there to talk to and just kind of get their feedback about the vibes of the community. I think that's really what I would look for. Beyond the minting stage. If it's at the minting stage, I don't mint projects that frequently, to be honest. I typically look at how it does after the mint. So I also understand the same mentality that people have, like why they didn't mint mine, right? But if it's before the mint, or when the mint has already started, if there is a certain amount of velocity, then I think it will be pretty safe bet. But even then, you never know if you're going to be left holding the bag. So if you're super, super, super nervous and it's your first NFT, I would actually recommend don't mint one. I would recommend like buying one off secondary, because even for some of my first NFTs that I bought last year when I first started, I bought this like Cyberkongs VX. It was the third generation drop. So it already had an existing community, and it was just like the third drop that they were doing. And even then I couldn't mint it, like it was sold out instantly. So I went and bought on secondary instantly, for example. So yeah, I think just kind of look at for like the quality of conversations that's going on in the public social media channels that you can see. And that's going to give you a kind of sense of like who these people are and are they for real. Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like like when you say not left holding the bag, it sounds like some of the NFTs you do treat as like financial monetary type value. Are there any on the flip side? Are there any NFTs that you just like love and you totally identify with the mission? You're going to hold on to regardless of what the commercials and the money looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so when I say hold the bags, because people are flipping on top of you, right?
Right.
And then after that, the whole team leaves. So you're just left like holding that. And most of the time I buy things that if I'm left with that, I'm be okay because like okay, it's a cool piece of art that I can display anyway. But recently I flipped something that I thought was really ugly, but I did it anyway because I won't say which project, but I thought but I did it anyway because I was like, okay, there's enough hype on this. I guess I will get in and get out. You know, people are doing this to most NFTs. I haven't actually done that for a while. But most of the time when I mint or purchase something, I'm okay if I'm left with it. Um, sorry, that was the second question. Um,
What are the NFTs that you love and you'll just identify and you'll hold on to regardless of whatever happens on
oh
the
yeah, right. So easy. Little Lemons. This one by Sniper, NFT Sniper bought Chibi Labs. He's doing a lot of good stuff. Cyberkongs. That's also something I have, and my wallet's actually public, so people can kind of go in and see my wallet if they want to see. I mean, there's a bunch of Toasties, but there's also some other stuff. So yeah, I think these are some of the collections that, regardless of what happens, you know, I think they are good and they're strong communities. And then I also like fine art, so art blocks. This is actually Tyler Hobbs, who did the Fidenzas. I think fine art is a totally different market, but while I enjoy the memes myself, I also enjoy, the occasional beautiful generative art piece. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, we're definitely over, but just I guess one last question for me. So you're obviously pretty deep into this space. What's an upcoming trend area or like shift that you're seeing that's really exciting?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm all about the online offline experience, and this is definitely something we're gonna see as the world opens up. So that's why even when I was thinking about Tasty Toasties as an NFT project, from day one I said, we're starting out as NFTs, but eventually the 5 to 10 year mark is that we're gonna have like a whole bunch of different things out in the tangible world with these, character IPs. And it's not just merch, it's actually like products or experiences, or like, can I license this out to have like a Tasty Toasty cafe the same way there's like a Hello Kitty cafe, so I think this online offline brand experience is going to be evident in the years to come. Because as much as we see very interesting metaverses being developed, the concept of a metaverse is not just about the platform where you play the game on or the pieces of digital land that you're buying. I really think it's who you're with that matters more. And this is something that stands the test of time, right? I mean, when we were cave people, like you're in tribe. With drawing like memes on maybe like with stone on like the cave wall. So um when we talk about metaverse platforms, I don't think it's necessarily also like it has to be the most fanciful, decked out VR thing. It could be like the most amazing product, but if no one is there, no one's gonna want to be there. So I think the online offline brand experience has to be really, really important for these communities to stick. If not, people will eventually float away and find other communities where they can have fun both online and offline. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So we'll have a toast party at some point in Singapore as a pre-runner for your Tasty Toasties Cafe. Yeah.
That would be awesome. Yeah, actually did have a meetup, but yeah.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, we're 15 minutes over, so I'm gonna have to end it now. But thanks so much for all the amazing questions, Chanel. Thank you for like being so candid and authentic and true. I mean, like best of luck for your project. It sounds absolutely amazing. And of course, everybody should know that you can go get the Tasty Toasty via secondary marketplace whenever you want.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for having me. If you don't want to just like hang out learn about NFTs, don't just like tweet me or LinkedIn me. Just find me on Discord or find my community members. So yeah, just come on Discord. See ya.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, everyone. Hope you learned a bunch
Yeah.
today. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye.